Welcome to the Beyond the Reef podcast, where I talk to experts and researchers in the reef aquarium hobby, discussing a broad range of topics from corals and reef biology to water chemistry and equipment. We take a deep dive into our guests' methods, techniques, and top reef keeping tips. My name is Adam Sutherland, and I am the owner-operator of Frag Garage Corals, based out of British Columbia, Canada. This podcast is now brought to you by Fauna Marine. I was hesitant to bring on any sponsors, but since I use so many Fauna Marine products, I was really happy to have them collaborate with me. And also, I am now a certified ICP consultant, so if you send in a laboratory ICP test, you can select me as an advisor. Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome to another episode. Today will be a pretty classic Beyond the Reef. I have Elliot Azhdam from Golden State Corals, and he has some amazing looking corals. I actually find a lot of my guests from just scrolling through Instagram, and whenever I see something that jumps out, I kind of take a look at what they're up to, and I immediately contacted Elliot, and he was all about being on the podcast, and we had a super fun conversation. And I also got him to send me a ton of video content, probably the most I've gotten from any guest so far. So if you're watching this one on YouTube, there's a lot of awesome footage of his systems. He also has a really nice display, which is a really good example of placement of a lot of the corals that he sells. Golden State Corals is currently having a 50% off sale on most of their what you see is what you get stuff, so you should definitely check out their website at goldenstatecorals.com. Also, just something I should mention about this episode, Elliot's video is really choppy. There isn't really much I can do about that, but there's so much good video content that you're probably going to see more of that than you see of both of us. Please subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, sharing the episode's probably one of the best things you can do to spread the word, and comment in that comment section. And for anybody looking for consultations for their ICP or troubleshooting, please go to my website at fraggarage.ca/consulting, and you can book a consultation session. You can also sign up on the Patreon at patreon.com/Beyond the Reef podcast, and you can sign up for monthly consultations if that suits you. Anyways, I hope you enjoy this conversation with Elliot Azhdam from Golden State Corals. Yeah, let's just launch in. So, so it's Elliot, right? Cool. I don't think I got your name when we were chatting, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's Elliot.
Yeah,
nice
okay.
Well,
nice to meet you, man. This is cool because we haven't really talked before, so like pretty much everything that's being talked about in this convo is like super fresh. So I know very little about how you run your systems, all of that stuff. So we'll talk about everything. I guess probably a good starting point. Maybe sometimes these stories go on too long, but maybe just give me a brief little background of how you got into reef keeping and how you kind of eventually turned it into a business.
Sure. So I was born on May. I'm just kidding. So I got into reef keeping pretty young. My first job was at a pet store in Maryland. Mm-hmm. Shout out to Congressional Aquariums in Rockville, Maryland. I was 15, had to get a permit from my guidance counselor to start working, and I fell in love with it. It was my first time doing saltwater. Prior to that, I had freshwater, but saltwater was like a whole other world that like opened up to me, and I was obsessed. So from 15 to 18, like 5 fish tanks in my parents' basement.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
For college. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
No, I didn't save a dime. I did not save a dime.
Yeah.
It all went to my fish tanks. It was horrible.
Yeah, and what year abouts was this?
Oh man. So I graduated high school in 2008. So let's say 2005. 2005 is when I started working at a pet store.
Okay. Yeah, so you got about 20 years. 20 years, pretty old school.
Yeah, give or take. Yeah. I took a little break in college, but then my last year I got back into it. I started working for a service company out in Arizona, and that just like reeled me back in. And a lot had changed. That was like LEDs were kind of new, and a lot more corals were coming in at that point. Like there was coral that I'd never seen before and stuff like that. And then when I graduated college, I came out here. I couldn't find a job for the life of me. So I went to work for Vivid Aquariums.
Nice, nice.
So I
Okay.
worked there for, yeah, so I worked there for a couple of years, built up some clientele. I started doing some servicing on the side. And me and my good friend from over there, we started the business. It was called something totally different, called California Aquariums. And we went from there. And 4 years from there, he decided he wanted out. I decided I wanted to keep it. I had to rename the business, and
Mhm.
then Golden State Corals was born.
Okay. So yeah,
So
so where are you
yeah,
based right now exactly? What's your location?
we are in Reseda, California. It's in the San Fernando Valley.
Okay.
So Los Angeles, but the Valley is what they call it.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Yeah, I know what you're talking about
Yeah.
with that kind of shift in, I don't know, maybe around 2010, 2012. I feel like the kind of corals we started seeing on the market were kind of at another level from, back in the early to mid 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it still just
Yeah,
kind of
totally.
continues to blow my mind, the kind of stuff we see these days.
Dude, I think things are like constantly shifting our tanks, and it's pretty incredible. I wish there was still more like wild stuff coming
Yeah.
in so you can mess with them because it seems it's definitely gone more towards the mariculture, and it's almost the same stuff
Yeah,
over
it,
and
it
over.
most definitely is. I mean, mariculture is kind of a monoculture, really, and it's complicated for those
Yeah,
companies to get new collection permits to add new brood stock. So, it's a lot of the same
exactly.
stuff. So, we'll get into this at some point, but I did see some pretty interesting. I don't know if they're kind of like GFP infections or some weird variations going on in a few of your corals. I don't know if those happen in your systems, but maybe we can get
Which
into
coral?
that. It was one. Okay,
Okay.
okay. Well, we can
I'm
talk about this
curious where
now.
you
This
saw
is
it.
this is swerving a little, but there was one that was like. I have to look at the video, but I'll show the video of this one in the background here. But it was
Huh.
one that was
Let's
like
see.
it didn't look like it was originally had yellow polyps, and then part of the coral has yellow polyps and part of it doesn't. Do you know what coral that is? I mean,
Oh, is
it's
it the
one of your
mostly like
nicest
purpley
corals.
pink base?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so that interesting. That one's really cool. I actually picked that up from I think a Reefapalooza or one of those coral farmers markets that we
Hmm.
do like locally about maybe 2 years ago now. Um, and I bought it as a Reef Raft Robin Hood,
Oh,
and it
okay.
had because like the Robin Hood's supposed to be a little more of that golden yellow coloration
Yeah.
in the main
And
body.
it's kind of like a
Um,
granulosa, loripes, kind of something like that. One of those smooth skin.
That it's a smoothie,
Yeah.
which
Yeah.
kind I'm not entirely sure. But it did have some green polyps to it, slight streaking,
Hmm.
and so when I brought it back, I ended up like chopping up a bunch of the that whole area where it had the grafting kind of happening,
Hmm.
and I separated some larger chunks to grow out separately and see what it kind of does as it grows out. So I think the one that you're well, there's one that's in the actual display, which was a had a lot of the greenish
Hmm.
yellow neon green in it, and that one's been dominating with the green
That's
coloration.
crazy because, like, usually these protein infections, or, the theory is also that they're like a mix of two different genotypes that happens during settlement. I think this is more of some kind of infection or change in the sort of structure of how the light is reflected. I don't really know, but it looks like most of the time those streaks are just in
Okay,
the tissue, but in this case it's actually the polyps that turn this yellow green color.
Correct. So
Yeah.
I wonder if it is an infection.
Uh-huh.
That yeah, I don't know because yeah, that's what I noticed most of the time when there's a grass. It's just like a streak,
Hmm.
but it doesn't affect the polyps in any kind of way. But these are obviously the green and yellowish, bright green polyps.
Yeah. I mean, if I was going to pick a piece from you, what is it called, by the way? What do you
So
call
we
this one?
just kept calling it Robin Hood.
Oh.
Like I because it's weird because I mean we can rename it, but
Yeah.
uh every the colony from time to time you see it start like that purple starts to get kind of golden
Hmm.
and then it goes away.
You know what
Like the main
you should call it something like Steals from the Rich or something like that.
because that's what Robin Hood does, and it's probably an expensive coral.
I might do that. I might do that.
Okay,
I should get a post it
I
and
get a
write
free
that
frag
down.
if
Or
I
I'll
ever.
text you and you remind me.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I got to get it up to you in Canada.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. So, I mean, like what we were talking about with, you know, the monoculture of mariculture, you can only hope that even collecting collector pieces from other farmers, you're going to end up with something that's got some unique thing going on. You know, how do you find unique corals? Like, other than kind of hoping that you come across some weird little variant like that, like what is your kind of main way to kind of acquire unique stuff?
So the main way I kind of go about it, I usually pick up my new pieces from coral farmers markets or like Reef Palooza, this is coral shows. There are sometimes guys there who have acros and they don't know what it is. Like they're not really into acros and they just have it from like either a client's tank they pulled out and it's just it's an acro. Like you just buy it. They're just selling it to you as an acro.
What is that? Oh, it's an acro. Yeah. What do you call that one?
Yeah.
Acropora.
And they're like, yeah. And they're like, how? And I ask them like, how much is it? And they're like, I don't know, $30. I'm like, okay, I'll take it. I'll give it a chance. I'll see if I can color it up and see what it does, you know? So that's how sometimes I get, like, I just picked up it's a cool granny, but it did fall and it kind of got a little bit bleached. So I'm hoping it bounces back. But it was like this kind of cool granny that looks like, it looked like Vivid's old school Northern Lights. You remember?
I think I've seen that one. Yeah.
That one? You've seen that one? It's kind of I picked one of those up recently too, but it reminded me a lot of that. And it's just, you don't see that too often. So I got it for $20 and
nice. Yeah. So a lot of this stuff is kind of just stuff that you've kind of heavily invested in, you know, or not even so much. You've invested in a chance of getting something really cool. And you know, after enough time, you kind of acquired this collection. Yeah. Cause I mean, your SPS look awesome. So I'm definitely going to ask a lot of questions about that. And obviously I probably talk about SPS too much on this podcast. So we'll talk about some of the other species you keep too. But I'm just looking through your Instagram and there's actually like quite a few weirdly variant looking pieces. Like there's the Robin Hood, but then I feel like there's a couple of these other kind of infection type looking pieces. So you don't have any particular theories on how those form. Those are more just, you just find a little streak or something and then isolate it.
So it's funny. So with chalices, I think it's a little bit maybe different. With acros, it just shows up randomly. I think it's one of those things where when you have so many different types of acros or even corals in general in one system, something happens. Either, I don't know, literally there's a pigment transfer, like something either dies or releases something. Sometimes I think Goniopora is the culprit because, you know, if you mess with those, all the little tiny green little hairs kind of fly off everywhere. But with the chalices, so one of my oldest pieces is the Crayola Meltdown, which is technically a mummy eye that has some grafting happening. That one I picked up in Arizona when I had my tank there and brought it back to me in LA. And one day it just showed up with a little blue speck. And it was just far away enough from the mouth where I was able to kind of frag it. So from there, it just kept getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And then it started developing some purples. And then now our mummy eyes do such weird things. I have one that's like a 50-50. It's like green and kind of a yellowish orange on the other half. Like there's a very distinct color shift on both sides, you know?
Yeah, and I think like you're saying too, it's all about isolating like a section that has a good percentage of that new part and having that new part grow out. But, you know, there's also theories that I've heard that some corals may have, like it could just be a gene that's turning on or off, that like the difference between that gene having a little change for whatever reason is actually expressed in a different coloration. And that coloration actually exists in its genetics to begin with. It's just not expressed.
So then what do you think triggers it?
I don't know. I wonder if it's stress, but also, like you say, maybe things bouncing around. Because I kind of think like something like the toxic Florida, like Slimer type coral. Like it's so heavy in that fluorescent yellow-green pigment, can some of that get somehow picked up by other corals? Even just a small amount is maybe enough to, make a change.
Right. On like the microscopic level. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know. And then the other thing was, I think this was on the conversation I had with the Aussie guys from Monsoon, is he said some of the corals that actually spawned, they'd have, I don't know, let's say green parents, and then they knew which eggs and sperm were put together, and they ended up with red corals as the offspring. Like a color that did not even exist in the parent strain.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Yeah. So
that would make the gene thing make sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if it is
right?
a gene,
like if the gene's then it's there, and then it could be turned on somehow at some point for whatever reason.
Totally.
Huh.
It would just be nice if we had a way to force it, or if anybody has noticed maybe that it happens more often in their system than others, and what's different about that system that's potentially causing that. I don't know.
I wonder if you blast something with like heavy UV as like a protective thing, would it trigger it or something?
Yeah, I don't know. Or just maybe more fragging leads to it too. More cut tissue and things.
Possible.
Just literally.
That
around.
trauma that they go through.
Yeah.
Being sliced.
Totally. Okay, so tons of stuff to talk about with your methodology. I guess like maybe one thing we should just cover a little is like you have like a small farm, right? Is it home-based business, I think you said? Or do you have a shop?
No, you have a shop. I have a warehouse. We have really weird, we're technically a store. We are a store. I just have really weird store hours. I do a lot of servicing. And then we are open on weekends. That's when we get a majority of our customers who come through. The weekdays people hit us up and they'll come through if I'm around. But it is a warehouse. It's about a little over 1,000 square feet.
That's good size.
Probably, I'm trying to think how many, maybe like 3,000 gallons of water total.
Yeah. And probably a little room to expand if you need to.
Or
is it pretty maxed out? Yeah.
No, I've maxed. I try to keep it with a little bit of open space because I want, when customers are here to be comfortable and not like squeezing through and doing that kind of stuff. But there is room for slight expansion. Yeah.
And something cool about your shop is you do have a great display in there. And I think like a lot of coral growers are kind of guilty of like not really having a display because they'll just be like, well, my frag tanks are my display. It's fine. But I wanted to talk about your display a little bit because I think that connects with the average user. We got a lot of coral farmers on this podcast, but run me through the maybe the display, and then we'll see which things apply to your systems as well. I don't know if the display is also plumbed into one of the Frag systems. That might be possible, right?
So it is. So it's a 150 gallon tank. It's pretty much a 120 but taller. I think it's 48, 24 wide, and maybe 30 inches tall. And it's tied into another 200 gallon 8x4 tub, plus we're probably talking about 100 gallons worth of water in the sump area. And pretty much it's a pile of rock. A lot of branching up top, a lot of hiding places for the fish, but we use a lot of branch rock in there, and it's been a work in progress for the last couple of years because I've had it collapse several times on either side, whether it's me doing something or an earthquake kind of shifts something or whatnot. It's fun times. It takes a long time to put it kind of back together, but
that's a factor. Even I guess a small little earthquake potentially, maybe a little shifting. I don't know.
Only because I don't glue the rocks necessarily. I kind of just anchor them in as best as I can, but if you just hit it the right way, it all goes tumbling. But I mean, I've always loved the idea of having a display tank. A lot of it's because when customers come in, they can see the potential of what their tanks can look like. And so, and in a way it's a piece of art, right? So you're trying to show the beauty of what a reef tank can look like. And so
and where you would place some of those corals, in a reef tank too, because when you see it all just in racks in a frag tank, doesn't give you as good a perspective as placement in the
Correct.
tank.
So you can really tell like what corals can handle the high light and what corals are just, doing fine in the lower light. And, and that's exactly what it displays. So we have all our chalices on the very bottom, some of the torches. I have some, well, actually, it's great because I can show people how torches can handle high light, but they can also handle lower light. And, you can kind of see the color changes in them and the shifts in color.
Yeah. Totally. What would you say is your range you kind of optimally would put torches in? Like, I find they can find like handle SPS par pretty well.
They can. I don't think you can take a torch though from like a lower light area and then just stick them up there.
Yeah, for sure.
I think you have to somewhat gradually do it. But yeah, I think one of ours in the top right corner of the display, that thing's probably getting around 600, give or take par.
Yeah. Yeah, that's not messing around.
No, it's not. Ooh, sorry.
And you probably see the best coloration in that range, I would imagine.
Correct. So, and just to show that off, I have the same exact piece on the bottom left in much, much lower light. It is quite a bit duller. You can tell it's the same torch, but the pop is not there.
Yeah, totally.
So
as far as lighting in the frag tank, is it fairly universal what you use around your systems too? Kind of same thing. Like what are you partial to?
In the display or in the frag tank?
Or
like
in the display.
Tub?
Yeah, like what lights do you use in general?
Okay. So in the display I have 3 XR30, Gen 5 and Gen 6. I don't remember if it's like 2 Gen 5s and 1 Gen 6 or however way, but I think they're close enough. And then we added, maybe 6 months ago, we added a blade, AI blade to the front just to kind of reduce the shadowing, to get that angled lighting kind of in there. But I'll tell you something kind of funny about that tank. So we get really, I think it's pretty crazy par because I've never run it that high before. But at the top, like where the splice sits and the Spath, the Heisenberg, those are getting, in the peak of the lighting, they get just over 1,000 par.
Wow.
Like possibly, 1,100, even 12 sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty nuts. And I did that on accident. Prior to having the third Gen 6 or Gen 5 on there, we had an XR15 Gen 4 in the middle. It died on me one day, and I had a spare light from the frag shows that we do. I stuck it on there, not thinking to adjust the schedule. Like, I'm putting a much more powerful light, very close. I didn't think about it at all. And so in like 2-3 weeks later, I had a customer come. He's like, dude, how much light are you giving these things? And it like clicked. And I was like, oh,
yeah.
Like I never checked the par. But at the same time, things look great. So
yeah. Well, the colors in that display look awesome. So
thank you.
Is that fairly uniform around your frag systems too? If it's the same water that's connected to that system, then I would imagine.
So they get less. The water, obviously the water's the same. The actual farming, the 8 foot by 4 foot, like that has Gen 4 radions, but they're sitting much, much higher off the water.
Yeah.
And those are running at about 90%. They're on the same schedule as the G5s and the G6. They're all running on the same schedule. But the par maximum we get on the peak is about 650, give or take, on the like maximum side. And then throughout the rest of the day, they're hitting anywhere from 350 to 450, give or take. Okay.
Yeah, that's pretty high par. Yeah. And like in combination with like what sort of nutrient ranges would you kind of shoot for?
So it seems to linger around 25 to 30 nitrates. I prefer it to be around 20, although it seems to never stay there, but I'm okay with that. Phosphates, I always try to have something, but in the last 6 months, it keeps bottoming out. So I'm forced to kind of feed a little extra every week. I feed 2 to 3 times a week, just a mix of different powdered foods and some phyto. And I dose that just to kind of make up for that low phosphate.
Yeah. So you're trying to not ever let it hit that absolute bottom, but it does tend to run sometimes undetectable or quite low.
Yeah, pretty often. More often than I'd like.
But like, what would you say? I mean, do you lose stuff very often? Would you blame like a bottom out of phosphates for loss of a coral? I think,
No.
yeah.
So in my eyes, I think I'm making up for it by feeding it, by feeding the tank, because I think every time I add the food, I'm adding some sort of phosphate to the system, and it just gets, I guess, absorbed like pretty quickly. And we have a good amount of Chaeto running in the system too, in the sub.
Yeah.
So I'm sure that doesn't help with the nutrients.
There is an argument that like high par goes better with low nutrients. I suppose maybe in theory because, which I don't agree with necessarily, but I can see maybe the argument for it is that maybe the coral is getting more of its energy from the extra par, from the extra light, and it's getting more energy from photosynthesis, and it requires less from phosphates and these other sources, but I don't know.
Interesting. I'm not about to try it.
Yeah. I mean,
bottom out the nitrates.
And I mean, that would be nitrates and phosphates, I think. So, it sounds like your nitrates are kind of sitting steady in that 20 to 30, and that's where they want to be. So not much point in messing with it. Yeah.
Interesting.
Maybe
I'll do a smaller system and test it.
Yeah. So it's just radions and no bars or anything on the frag tanks?
It's just there's no bars. Maybe a few years ago we used to have T5s in addition. I took them off. I got kind of tired of swapping out the bulbs. I loved them, don't get me wrong, they were great. It just also I run a lot of power off that one system, so I just wanted to try and reduce it a little bit if I could.
Yeah. And I'll show some videos of the farm because I kind of like to see like the spacing and the heights and kind of how you've rigged up your lights. And actually, speaking of which, I was going to talk about this later, but this is a good segue. You 3D printed something that I don't know why I didn't ask somebody to do already, because I've made a lot of my lighting canopies out of 80/20 rail, like the 3/4 inch rail. And you made like a 3D print bracket for radions that slides right into that rail.
Correct. So, well, I have to correct you there. I didn't make anything.
Okay.
I have a really good friend. His name is Tony. He goes by Neon 3D or Neon Reefer 3D. And we met like 3 years ago. He came into my shop and was like, dude, I got an idea for you. This is the future. And like, I was like, yeah, whatever, dude. And no, I listened to him and I was like, whoa, like, I saw the potential, and he's the real brain behind it, and we kind of just showcase it here at the shop and are trying to like get it out there, and it works really well. It's like a very universal thing. So say with your 80/20 that you have on your system, if you ever decided, I want to throw a Kessel on there, you can do it. You can do that mixture of light. You can do Radion, AI Hydra, Kessel, and all. You can do the full combination very easily.
Yeah.
And they kind of just slide right in.
Yeah, that's cool. And that's on your website, and people can order it there. And I mean, good little plug. But yeah, if people aren't familiar with 80/20 or like extruded aluminum is kind of the term for it. It's such a good way to build a light canopy, because like, let's face it, like the Ecotech like Radion mounting systems are so much money, and they're not even that great.
They're so expensive.
Yeah.
No, yes. Like they're super expensive. The shipping on them is insane. And if you decide one day you want to switch a light or like go a different route, you have to get rid of that and then buy a whole new thing. If you get the 80/20, it makes it super easy to swap out your lights or do combinations if you wanted.
Totally.
But
it's totally modular. Modular is the key, right?
Very modular, yeah. And I think the 80/20 stuff, you're seeing more and more of it. It's been around for a really long time. Even to me, it was super intimidating at first, but then once I just got my hands on it a little bit, I was like, wow. And then all of a sudden you're like, dude, you can do so much with this.
Yeah. It's awesome.
It's really true. You can do stands, light racks, just, other things, so many different things.
Totally. It's like a Meccano or like Lego for adults. Actually, I shouldn't say that because a lot of adults like Lego. So, you know.
Guilty.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a cool thing that you have to offer. I'm going to have to get some of those for a new light rack build that I'm working on. But that's really cool.
Nice.
Yeah. So let's talk a little more about your, I don't know, your methods and some of the products you use and whatnot. What is the main sort of driver of your systems for your major elements?
So I have a calcium reactor on there. That's what we just do to keep the, alkalinity pretty stable and all that. I do have to dose magnesium separately to keep that up. For some reason, that just keeps dropping and dropping. So I have to keep adding it on a doser separately.
Yeah. Did you ever try the magnesium?
On top of that,
sorry to interrupt. Did you ever add the magnesium pellets to your calcium reactor? Does those work well?
So yes, I added a whole bag to it just to see if I can get it back up without having to dose. I'd rather not be dosing the magnesium because our calcium and alkalinity stay pretty stable with the calcium reactor running. I think at some point it just melted away and I completely forgot to, add it to the reactor again. So it's in there now. It's slowly creeping back up. We monitor it pretty regularly. So just to make sure if I have to shut off the mag dosing, I do that.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, we're also dosing calc in a tub, and it does it through the night. Or as our lights start to dim, it kind of kicks on at like a slow paced drip.
Okay.
Until the early afternoon.
So do you do like a slurry or do you do like a lower concentration kind of style mix?
Honestly, I don't even like measure. It's like I think it's a 15-gallon drum. And pretty much every Friday we just take a little scoop, dump it in there, and then I have a little Ceche pump inside that during non-running hours it turns on for like 5 minutes at a time and just kind of
gives it a
mixes
stir.
everything around. Yeah, and it shuts off a good 2 hours about 2 hours before it starts to dose calc into the system.
Yeah. Okay. And does the calcium reactor run 24/7 or is it just during the day?
All the time.
Okay.
Nonstop. Okay. It never shuts off.
Interesting. Yeah. One of my systems I run, my LPS system runs that same kind of method. So.
Okay.
Yeah. So in that, I guess in that system in particular, I mean, using that method of using calc and calcium reactor, you're going to be missing some trace elements. So are you doing any kind of trace element based program?
I am. Well, it's a pretty half-assed way of doing it, but I am trying to actually start adding more and take it a little more seriously. So I was joking with my coworker. I hadn't sent an ICP up until like I got results last week, but prior to that, I hadn't sent one since December of last year. And
that's all right.
And the reason I sent that ICP in December was because I wanted to start, trace elements and go with the moonshiners and all that. When I got my results, I decided, okay, I'm going to go with like the dailies for now. And whatever the calculator tells me, I'm going to cut it in half, if not a little bit less. And that's pretty much what I did. So ever since we got the results last December, we've been dosing trace elements at like a minimum. And it seems to have worked. And I just got my results back 2 weeks ago. Everything's pretty good, actually.
Lots of check marks.
And well, except for I have to increase manganese and iodine, and then there was one more. Oh, and iron. Those three. So as of earlier this week, I told my guy let's double up on those for now, and then I'll send another ICP like in 2 weeks and just see what where that gets us.
Yeah, it's probably smarter than in a year if you're upping stuff, but that's pretty good. I mean, it makes sense. Iron and manganese are two elements that are going to get pretty readily used up by the system, and they're part of photosynthesis and whatnot. So, or one of the drivers for it. So that makes sense. But that's funny though. Like, how low was your iodine? Was it just a little low, or was it quite low? Because I mean, I consider that one of the most important elements. So
I don't disagree with you. The exact numbers, I don't know. I think the first time December when I think it was like critically low, where it's like bright red and it's, do something about it.
Angry.
But I think this time it was just low. We're not quite, wish I had it with me so I could tell you the exact numbers, but it wasn't that far off, but it was still
okay.
It's better than it was.
Yeah, and I think iodine
but
also,
I do plan on.
It's better to have that element be a little bit low than way high, overall. So
yeah, agreed. Yeah. And then I was actually going to ask you something, because I think I was listening to it was one of your podcasts where you talked about fluoride or fluorine, I guess. And so when I heard that, I started dosing it, but I was doing it on a daily, and I didn't realize that it's not necessarily one of those that you should be doing on a daily.
I do it on a daily. No, I do now.
You do? Okay.
I
heard somewhere and I was like, oh crap. Like I've been doing it daily, and it's like right on the money. And I was really happy about that. So, nice. And I did ever since I started dosing the fluoride. Am I saying it right? Is it fluoride or fluorine?
Well, yeah, I think fluorine. Fluoride is the element. Fluorine's it's the different like form of it or whatever. But yeah, what we put in our tanks is fluoride, as far as I understand. So
okay. So after listening to you, I did notice the flesh on things got like happier. Mm-hmm. It was like fluffier, and the colors seemed to be even better too when I started doing that. So I did like that. Cool. Trace.
Direct evidence. And actually, this is a question that's on my list here that I had selected before you even said that. But what is a direct change or maybe product you started using where you noticed like you could definitely attribute the positive result to the change you made?
Oh, okay.
Other than maybe outside of this. Yeah.
So fluoride for one.
Yeah.
But the other thing I started doing about a year ago. No, 8 months to a year. Was ammonium bicarbonate. That stuff is like, the explosion in growth was pretty awesome. And that was quite noticeable. Mm-hmm. That also, I think, contributes to my higher nitrates. Mm-hmm. So, but I think the corals really like it. I think polyp extension got better on things. Growth was like almost night and day. Like that really? 150 gallon display is now forcing me to have to redo and fix one of our other displays to try and make some more room and get some things out of there. So that's definitely one thing that I liked a lot.
Yeah. And were your nitrates elevated in the range you mentioned before, 20 to 30 ppm or pp? What is it? ppm?
They weren't. They were around 15 to 20 pretty steadily.
Okay.
But now I noticed when the ammonium bicarbonate, or ammonia, I should just say ammonia. When the ammonia stops or runs out, and I don't notice, you will see the drop in nitrate like pretty fast.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And it gets.
Yeah, so there's probably a portion of it that is obviously some of it's getting consumed by the corals, hence the growth, and then whatever doesn't get used is probably getting converted into nitrates pretty quickly from, the bacteria in your system. Yeah.
Yeah, we have to be careful when we test for nitrates, because if it's just dosed the ammonia, we'll get like some ridiculous nitrate readings.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, definitely testing tanks in general at set times of day is critical. Like, don't test your phosphates right after you feed a bunch of reefroids or something like that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Can't be doing that.
Yeah. So as far as feeding, unless you have anything else, because these are good tips, is these direct change kind of equals
the other change, which was an accident, was that increase in par on the display. I think we definitely noticed quite a bit of extra growth, and that was after. So we had already noticed good growth with the ammonia, And then doing that light thing, it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then the colors too, like, they got a little more intense. Some of the greens kind of go towards not quite yellow, but it's trying to get to that yellow coloration. And yeah, it's really just those. Trying to think if there was anything else ever. No.
Yeah. Is there anything you tried, maybe a product that you saw a detrimental result pretty obviously?
This would be quite a while back. I used to have, I mean, we never used to get these kind of colors doing the method that we're doing now. But prior to that, we still had acros and they were good colors and they were growing and healthy. But flatworm stop kind of messed some stuff with some stuff. And then I had issues with acro power. And I don't know, at that time, I didn't know all the things I know now. But I just remember when we started those things, not at the same time. These were two separate instances, but both had negative effects for us.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think maybe that could be something like the carbon source that is kind of converted out of aminos or whatever's in that flatworm stop mixture. Maybe that, has an impact on some of those populations of bacteria in the coral's tissue and the microbiome, and that kind of messes it up, And it's also the whole DOC conversation around aminos too. It could be part of it.
That's kind of new stuff to me, and I'm kind of trying to grasp fully.
Yeah, just kind of, just lightly. That's why I said just scratching the surface in that episode, because it's like we're just kind of starting to understand a few things about it. But actually, funny enough, a friend just mentioned to me, we were talking about the whole bolus method thing, and it does seem to be working for some people, but he made a point. He's like, maybe it's just the peak of light at the start of the period, and a lot of people's lights weren't bright enough. And I was like, that could actually be it. It could actually just be the peak in light. I mean, sure, I'm not going to put down the method because I have it running on one of my systems, and then that system is doing great.
Okay.
But maybe one of the big parts of it is that a lot of people's lights weren't hitting enough of a high enough par peak. And now that it is, it's like, okay, now I see it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but also as far as lighting goes too, sorry, this might be a little off topic, but I've seen some incredible tanks with like much lower par. Like they max out at maybe 400, and some of their things are sitting at 200, and things look great.
Yeah. Yeah,
so
I'd say that's closer to my system. I think it's like, my corals will get anywhere
really?
from, in the SPS system, the sides might be 250, and then it's maybe 450, 500 at the surface. So, the average coral is sitting somewhere between 3 and 450. But
I don't know why I thought you were running higher par.
Well, I mean, just looking at your corals, I'm kind of like, maybe I should see if I can get a little more.
Try it. Where do your nitrates sit?
They've been sitting lately a little bit higher, like around 15 to 20, and the phosphate's around 0.1, pretty consistently.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
maybe
I don't know.
Try it on like half the tank.
Yeah, I might be able to afford to blast them a little bit more. What is your thoughts on lighting in terms of like peak period versus like your total photo period? Like, do you kind of have a peak period length that you like?
I like I've always liked about 3 hours, give or take. And so we run our system actually a little bit differently because we try to accommodate the store hours and for customers. I think customers, well, I shouldn't say all customers, but most customers appreciate the heavy blues. So prior to that, before the shop opens, that's when our peak is. So we start off it starts off at 8 a.m., goes from 8 to 8 pretty much. So it's a 12-hour cycle. From 8 to 9, it's pretty heavy blues, and then the peak starts. So and I'm a big fan of warm white versus cool white. I still run some cool white, but that warm white, I get that to like 100%.
Okay, yeah, because there's not a lot of diodes in the warm white either, right? Like maybe the pros have more, but
that I don't know how many diodes are.
It's not a ton.
I know. Pros have the warm white, but I don't. I can't remember if the blues have it or not. I'm not sure if
the Gen 5s did.
Or they do. I think they do.
The Gen 5s did, but not the Gen 6. Not the Gen 6 blues. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but I imagine it's like a 4-to-1 ratio or something like that. It's like of the white, the blue white to the warm white, or the crisp white or whatever.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So you think it's really important for
much...
them to get that kind of most daylighty part of the spectrum for how many hours per day would you say?
I give them a 3. So that goes pretty much from 9 o'clock to 12 o'clock in the afternoon. It's getting the peak. So everything's, and I don't run, I run red and green maybe at 5%. I think, don't quote me on this, but I think the cool white I run at maximum maybe 50%. And I do run, I think this is kind of important, I do run the cloud coverage. So not everything's being full on blasted during that period where the lights are.
I've
intense.
seen the cloud coverage setting, but I don't think I ever used it. So that does it just give some variance in, like, say you have 8 radions over a system. Does some of them, like, they might not all be at the same? Like, there's a little variance between all of them.
Yeah. So, for instance, with our tank, because sometimes I forget we put the cloud coverage. I'm like, oh crap, is the light like broken? Because you can clearly see like the left side is much dimmer than the entire right side, or from the middle to the right. So the 3 lights, and it shifts. So then all of a sudden, then the left gets brighter, and then the middle dims down, and then it goes randomly between the lights. And I think that's a huge benefit to the corals. I think they appreciate like a little bit of a break during those peak hours. And it makes sense because if you think about it, I mean, there's clouds over the ocean. Maybe not all the time, but it's a thing, and it I don't know, it just makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think we are almost like too consistent with our tanks, and I don't know if you've ever been to Bali or some of the farms in Southeast Asia. Have you ever made that trip? Yeah, I mean, one of the things I noticed...
One day.
I've been twice. I've been lucky enough to go twice, and the thing That's noticed was like this region where they were collecting and growing a lot of these corals were like, I mean, this was kind of in the off season, so it was starting to become the rainy season, but like, after the afternoon when the tide comes up, like it's pretty dark down there. Like it's not bright like you would expect. Like it was a cloudy-ish day, but like, it's kind of murky, like not, but when the tide's low, like these corals are getting probably, I don't know what the par of the sun is, like a foot down from the from the top of the water, but it's probably pretty high, so but
probably pretty high, yeah.
But it's a lot of variation for sure, so yeah, cool. Like I always thought of that cloud cover thing as just like a funny little gimmick, just like that's kind of cute. We can put thunder and lightning sounds on. Cool.
Yeah. Okay, that I don't know. I think that's more for like a spawning thing, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, or maybe not that. The lunar.
Yeah,
thing
the lunar stuff's for and Jamie Craggs was a part of how that was all programmed for the radions too. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
He did the initial research, and they used a lot of his data to program those lunar cycles. So
that's cool. Yeah, I think the cloud coverage though is like pretty important, especially if you're trying to get like pretty high par.
Yeah, it's kind of like thinking about. I mean, I talked about this a bit lately too. Is do you think corals need a little bit of a break from flow sometimes too? Like maybe they need a little break from light, but maybe just like a really eased off moment of flow here and there. Maybe more, I don't know, LPS than SPS, but
maybe more so the LPS, but also maybe not, because they do close up at night, so maybe the flow doesn't affect them as much. But with acros, it's funny that you say that, because on our system we have it's a timer. It's a button you can press, and it shuts off the flow for about 10 minutes so that customers can look inside. We always have, a little bit of flow running, but it really calms the surface, so you can you don't have to use a look down to see them. And I mean, between customers and us getting our hands in there, seeing what we're doing, we do give them a break from flow pretty often, I would say.
Yeah.
And so it might, but have I noticed it? But then again, the 150, the display doesn't really get a break. They're like older MP40s, and I haven't programmed them to like shut down to like 50% at night or anything like that. So, and those are going just nonstop.
Yeah, so that doesn't.
It's all random.
Yeah.
Like,
I'm just thinking about the the arm flailing tube man in front of the like car dealership. Those wacky guys. Yeah, like they need a break sometimes, right? You got to give that. Somebody turns it off at some point. That thing doesn't run 24/7. But yeah, no, I know what you're saying.
Oh my God.
So maybe maybe the system that gets a little break. Like, I just kind of think maybe there's something going on to like, like there are really calm moments in most reefs. Most of the time it's pretty steady and there's always a pressure, but there might be a moment where it's like quite calm for, a small period of time. Is there any benefit to that? I don't know. You're doing it inadvertently.
I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm doing it inadvertently, but I will say the pieces that I do put in the 150 grow quite a bit faster. Now that could be the difference in lighting, but they do grow quite a bit faster than what's in the vat.
Mm-hmm.
So like if there's a piece that's, I've had for like 2 years and it's barely grown, I'll throw it in there and not always, but most of the time that thing will start to take off.
Mm-hmm.
Or at least start showing signs of new growth and like it really wants to start doing something.
Mm-hmm. So how many actual individual sets of water chemistry are at your facility then?
Right now it's 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay. Yeah.
4. Not including the little fish and invert system.
Yeah.
We don't really test that one.
Yeah. Like 4 is, if you have 4 good systems, that does give you, the ability to experiment a little bit, because you can do things a little differently and see. And sometimes you don't think you're doing anything differently, but a coral just does better in one system versus another. Yeah.
Yeah, we see it. It happens. What exactly attributes to that? I haven't figured that out. I've just been babying this acro system for the last 2 years, so I don't give too much attention to the other systems.
Yeah.
And then I do plan on converting one of our main displays to mostly acros.
Yeah.
I'm gonna revamp it very soon.
Cool. So you have most of the acros are in one system then. They're not really spread out. Okay.
Correct. I have doubles of a lot, but I'm thinking with how well things are doing, I need to have a different system just in case.
Yeah. Backups are huge for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Yeah. So in terms of just things that you do differently between, say, the LPS system and the SPS system, would you just say most of it is flow and lighting, and maybe you put a little more attention to the chemistry in the SPS system? Is there anything else really? I'm just guessing here, but
anything different than LPS? No, not really. I don't put trace. Well, we only started recently, and I'm doing on the LPS. I've started recently doing the Red Sea Colors program on there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not individually, dosing the trace elements.
Yeah.
And same thing with that. I started very low. See, and I've noticed some improvement. I haven't sent an ICP yet, but
yeah.
I plan to. But other than that, besides the flow and lighting, no, honestly, there's not much of a difference.
Yeah.
We do use I do use sodium hydroxide though for trying to keep the alk up and pH as well.
Okay. I mean, that was one of my next questions. Was I wanted to talk about pH a little bit, because you probably, 1,000 square feet isn't a huge space, so you probably find if there's a lot of humans in there that you're going to have more of a drop in pH. Like, is there kind of like an air exchange? Like, what are your kind of pH ranges run typically?
So, well, okay. So when they're calibrated, our acro system tends to run around 8.4 pretty consistently, and it might drop at night to like 8.3, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
However, I honestly stopped monitoring because I got tired of calibrating the pH probes.
Yeah.
So I kind of figured, if we stay consistent with what we're adding and, not much changes as far as evaporation. So I kind of just gave up on checking pH.
Yeah. One thing to keep in mind is that when pH probes start to get old, they start to read higher than they are. So over time, like the diode gets weaker, and for whatever reason, I can't remember the explanation for it, but then it will present a higher reading. So people think over time their pH is getting better, but their probe's actually just getting worse.
Correct. I noticed it, but I'll check with like a different pH probe, and it's like, okay, it's not actually, but I'm still not going to calibrate. So I kind of, but if it's like a huge jump, like quick, I'll look into it, which hasn't happened, but and then as far as ventilation, like we have a pretty big roll-up door, like a garage. And sometimes when I'm in here early morning, I'll open it, and if it's when it's cooler weather outside, I'll get it open and just let some fresh air in. But I also have some fans to like attach to the roof that kind of just are constantly sending warmer air, humid air out of the warehouse. So all those things I think potentially help a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're in a pretty good range. So I guess you're not messing around with like CO2 scrubbers or anything. It's like the hydroxides are kind of enough to do the job.
Yeah, I've thought about it, but I haven't done it yet. Yeah, it's just the sodium hydroxide, and that's just for the LPS, and that's just to like kind of, and I don't even monitor well, that's a lie. When I first set it up, I did monitor the pH just to make sure I'm not going, too crazy with it. And it seemed to balance out because we also dose vinegar, so I think we're getting a slight little, there's that quick little drop in pH when it doses. Probably doesn't help that it's right next to the probe.
Yeah. Well, that would balance out pretty fast. So you're doing a little bit of vinegar for like a carbon source. Is that something you've done for a long time? Or?
Yeah, because no, I had to do it somewhat recently, in the last couple of months because suddenly our nitrates, because when our nitrates used to be around 20, suddenly they're hitting 50 in the LPS system. And I couldn't exactly figure out why, but on top of the vinegar, I started doing the Tropic Marin bio pellets, and within 2-3 weeks, we're back down to like 25 now. Okay. It's been staying there.
And maybe 50 was fine. Who knows? But probably just to keep it consistent to what you kind of shoot for. Plus, what a lot of people's tanks will be. That's probably a good call.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't know. I think somewhere I heard you don't want to have a huge drop in nitrates typically, or like a fast drop. It's better to go down slow versus quickly,
I kind of think actually like a nutrient bottom out, like a very sudden drop in nutrients is actually more dangerous than an alkalinity swing. I kind of like, I talked about this on the last podcast, but we were kind of saying that we don't really think alkalinity swings are really as bad or even anything to corals if the corals are healthy, but maybe a complete shift in nutrients, like you say, could be more of an issue.
It could be. I don't know how often that happens. Like if you have, decent nitrates, decent phosphates, how quickly could it realistically get down to like bottom out? Are we talking like a day or two or a couple of weeks? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I know the concoction, the Allen's concoction can make a pretty massive shift from that big bacteria bomb.
Oh, really?
So potentially it can drop nutrients really quickly. I'll have to catch up with Alan on this, but from what I remember, even though you're adding a bunch of food that should be a nutrient, it's like the cocktail of the bacteria and probably the nitrification that's happening after that is actually maybe potentially make your nutrients drop really fast. But so that's why once you start doing it, you kind of want to keep up with it. But I don't know.
Keep up with it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, I don't know. It does sound like you have a pretty good sort of bacteria composition overall in your tanks. I mean, just looking at the health of your corals and stuff. Like, have you ever added any bacteria products, or have you kind of just established your systems?
So, no, I've never added, I don't use, Microbacter. However, as of 6 months ago, give or take, something like that. So we actually... We had a little outbreak of dinos, just started kind of forming. I think when the weather got a little bit warmer, all of a sudden it triggered it, and I tried not to panic. I ran some carbon, and then I started dosing, and I don't know if this was exactly it or things just balanced out on their kind of own, but the Remediate from Captivate, that powder that it's a blend of, I think, bacteria and other things. So I double dosed that on very regularly, and it seemed to help things out quite a bit. The dinos kind of just went on their own, and things seem to have balanced out quite nicely.
I gotta remember what the Remediate is. Is that the carbon source one? Or I'm just going to look
honestly,
it up here.
I'm not entirely sure because they have two. They have Inoculate, which is more for when you're starting the tank.
Yeah.
And then they have the Oh, how did that happen?
Whoa,
And
that was
then
weird.
then there's yeah, what was that?
Is it
That was
balloons or something? I don't know.
interesting. I
Okay.
don't know. I'm not touching anything.
This might not be in the final video,
You saw
so it
that
should be
too.
fine. But yeah,
That's
so
fine.
the remediate is a nutrient control. So
But it has something to do with
microbial
the
blend.
dock.
Yeah, yeah. So which supplements existing biological filtration in established systems, providing a host of non-pathogenic, heterotropic, aerobic and anaerobic organisms. Okay. Yeah, so it's a
Yeah.
cocktail of kind of stuff to get your bacterias in a good balance.
Yeah.
Cool. And is that the calc you're using? Are you
Correct.
using the Captivate calc?
No, I still have I have this huge bucket of calc from bulk reef supply, but as soon as that's like done, I'm switching. I really
Yeah.
like their stuff a lot,
Yeah.
and
And the BRS calc's
I
pretty
will.
good too. From
No,
what I
it's
hear.
good
Yeah.
too. I think I may have exposed it to air a little too many times
Mhm.
too, so I don't
Mhm.
know how potent it is.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I think that remediate stuff. I dose that now once a week with the food, and I'm still doing, not exactly. I'm not following the instructions. I'm kind of putting a little extra
Mhm.
into the system,
Yeah.
and I haven't noticed anything negative, so I'm gonna keep doing it for now.
Mhm. Yeah. Okay, that's cool. I guess I didn't ask yet what salt brand what are you using now and what have you used? Any kind of conclusions in the salt market?
Yeah. I currently am on Instant Ocean, just the regular Instant Ocean, not Reef Crystals. We use that pretty much on all our systems, especially for topping off. However, I do keep Tropic Marin Pro on hand when if I ever need to do a larger water change on the acro system, I will mix a batch of that and use that
Okay.
to do the water change. But I've been really happy with Instant Ocean, honestly.
Hmm.
It is a dirtier salt, so we have to clean our mixing vat a little more often, and our holding vat is probably due for a cleaning too.
Yeah.
But and in the past we've used Tropic Marin, no issues. It mixes quick.
Yeah.
Parameters are always stable. But other than that, it's if I had to like pick and choose, it would be if I could afford it to, for all the salt we go through, it would be Tropic Marin and
Mhm.
then Red Sea Blue and then Instant Ocean.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, Pieces of
But
the Ocean uses Instant Ocean, and they get good success with
mm,
it. So, do you
yeah,
doctor the salt when
I've
you
been
mix
really
it up?
happy.
Do you do anything to it?
Do I
Like,
what? Sorry?
do you add anything to it?
No,
No.
no,
Yeah.
I don't do anything. I have like from time to time, every now and then I check our water mixture and sometimes like the calcium's a little low, so I'll like put a little bit in there and
Mhm.
add it to there. And then Mag 2 is usually low on the Instant Ocean.
Yeah, I would
But
imagine.
generally I don't mess with it.
Yeah, well, it's cheaper for them to make to just have it be a little short on some of those things. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I'm gonna do a water change soon with reef crystals just as an experiment, because I've gone through a lot of different
Oh,
salts over I would say the last year. I've tried 4 different salts for like a solid
okay.
chunk of time. Maybe the last year and a half, I've
Okay.
tried 4 different salts for like 3 to 4 to 6 months. So,
Okay.
and I'm not conclusive on anyone being better than others, but I do agree some mix better. Like the Tropic Marin,
Correct.
the Fauna
Crystal
Marin
clear.
mix is
Yeah.
fast too. I actually found the Red Sea mix really well for me, but some people said they
Yeah,
found the
surprisingly.
opposite. So I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. I may have gotten like one batch, one bucket one time. Or actually we used the bag. So the one
Yeah.
time I think one of the bags tested a little or mixed a little bit extra cloudy.
Hmm.
So I did kind of dump that and I just didn't want to chance it.
Yeah,
And the next
totally.
batch was totally fine.
Yeah, if you feel weird,
You
if you feel some weird mojo coming off your bag or bucket of salt, like it's just
hmm
yeah. Yeah, I've had
Yeah.
that before. I'm not
But
going to say which brand. I'm not going to get into the details, but I did a water change once and it
that's
wasn't even a
okay.
big one, and it was a pretty obvious like, that seems like
Yikes.
something's going on with that bag. So I just stopped using
Okay,
it.
right.
Yeah.
Jeez. So when you switch salts, do you do like a slow transition or
Nah, I would just do, instead of doing say a 20%, I'd do like a 10% water change.
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
like I mean, it's still all trying to achieve salt water, like a salt water at the
Yeah.
end of the day.
I
So,
mean,
Yeah, like
salt is salt.
Yeah, I'm not going to do like a 50% water change with a new salt, but I'm comfortable with doing like 10 to 15. Overall, I think that's fine.
Yeah,
but
that makes sense.
Yeah,
that's safe.
Another category here we could get into is maybe about water clarity and like what do you believe the importance of water clarity? Do you run carbon? Do you run UV? Anything like that?
Okay. No UV, carbon on occasion, just like randomly. If I feel like some things are looking a little bit off, or I don't know, it's like a random thing, and I don't keep it in there for very long either. I do have ozone on hand if I want to, but I rarely run it because I did find in one of our systems I was running it and the tangs seem to have gotten some weird stuff happening.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Like,
I just picked up an ozone and I have not put it on the system yet, but I was going to try really lightly to start at night. So you're kind of thinking maybe it didn't do anything good for you?
No, it definitely clears up the water. It makes it crystal clear. I think just running it long term is not necessary per se. Because I think if you run it for too long, which we ran it for quite some time on one of our displays here, and you could definitely tell the tanks. And then as soon as I stopped, they did start to recover. It was almost like I don't know if it is lateral line like that started developing, but something similar-ish looking.
Okay.
But it did reverse. And then we don't run filter socks. I have the option too. So if I'm ever doing like a deeper clean, I need to get like detritus or I'm stirring things up, I'll throw some socks on just to capture the extra. But other than that, it's just recirculating.
Yeah, that's actually not a bad idea. Just kind of treat the filter socks more like a thing you use if you need them. Because otherwise they're just filling up and clogging up and keeping that stuff. Yeah, and they're keeping that stuff in your water, really. It's just sitting in the mesh instead of wherever else it ends up. Yeah. That's why I guess filter rollers are a good way to go. But I'm putting one on a new system. I'll see what I think. I think people seem to like them.
I've also heard that those can be almost too clean.
Yeah,
I guess it would depend on the micron.
And I think it's important for people that are setting up a new tank not to just throw, like, if you have the money to buy all the toys, like, don't just throw put your skimmer on so it's like skimming quite wet, like, oh, nothing, it's not skimming anything, I turned it up. It's like, yeah, that's because there's nothing to skim. And then you got a filter roller on there. Like, you're just stripping everything out of the water.
Everything.
And then the other thing I'll see in people with these brand new systems is they put a trident on day one. It's like, dude, nothing's growing yet.
Why?
Like, oh, cool. The test is the same. Yeah, no surprise there. Like, yeah. So I don't know.
Yeah. They're like, or sometimes we have like new customers who come in and they're like, I just set up a tank, but my alk isn't dropping. I'm like, do you have anything in there yet? It's like, nothing's really consuming it, and it's there and it's not moving. Like, in time it'll come down. But
yeah, totally. It takes a while for sure. I mean, coral growth is an exponential thing, right? So yeah. What would you say? Okay, so we talked about the pH stuff. What would you say is what's your kind of quarantine or intake kind of protocol? Like you said, most of your corals that you acquire and grow out are like aquacultured kind of from the community rather than importing stuff.
Correct. I will on occasion find something at a wholesaler that like piques my interest and I'll try to grab it. Now, as far as quarantine, we have a like mini tank that we use from the shows that we do. And that's what we use. We kind of temporarily put things in there and observe them. And we'll cut off the bases, rebase them. I have this really awesome microscope, so I'll stick it under there just to check for any, red bugs or white bugs. Never seen black bugs before. But we'll do, treatments on them. If it's an LPS, sometimes I'll run like or even acros too. I'll run a Cipro treatment a little bit on them, and then I'll hit them with some interceptor and of course just random dips throughout. And then once I know that they're healthy, they go onto the system.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you do an interceptor kind of bath. Yeah. And for people that aren't familiar, interceptor is Basically, well, it's actually a dewormer, but it kills a lot of bugs, a lot of crustaceans. So any kind of acro bugs or whatever.
Yeah.
It's good
I keep
stuff.
them
It's
on
milbemycin
on
oxime.
hand.
There you go. There's Interceptor. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and some
Yeah.
vets
Keeps
will
them on hand. You never know.
yeah, some nice vets will prescribe it to you, well, not to you, to
Some
your
nice.
pet, and then
No,
you get
to
it
my
for your
pet.
pet,
Yeah.
and then it's for your for your horse.
Correct.
Yeah, I mean, most of them. I remember talking to my vet about it, and my vet, like, actually who was it? The person at reception kind of knew me from school, and she's like, yeah, like, I know you're not like a crazy person. Like, you're not going to do anything weird with this stuff. So yeah, I think it's okay. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's good.
Well,
Yeah.
so it's like not all the vets are very like open to it out here, at least, or from my experience. So we're fortunate enough we have a couple of vet techs who come through, and I ask them for a favor. Hey, can you ask your vet? And because if they want to prescribe you just one, it's just one. Like if you have a large system, one pack does not do
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
So
No, you need a
you
lot,
have to,
and it's expensive
you
for
need a
sure.
lot.
Yeah.
And it's expensive. I used to order it from to come through Canada, but then I guess they started cracking down out here, and
Yeah.
it's like hard to find it now on the websites, or I can't get access.
I got a source for you. I'll hook you up after the show. Yeah, I won't
Nice.
mention on here,
Nice.
but I got a source for you. The good stuff.
Sweet. I'll take it.
Yeah. Yeah. So just like as far as your corals, like you have a little bit of everything, right? Like obviously you got some pretty banging SPS, but you've got a nice variety of LPS. Like, I kind of like asking people about Goniopora because like I've done awesome with them at times, and then I've had some pieces that just start to kind of lose pulp extension and kind of eventually recede and die. And it's not every piece because sometimes it'll be right next to a piece that I've grown from a frag that's just doing awesome. Do you have any kind of little tips on Gonies that you've kind of observed?
Honestly, I go through the same thing. There's some that just thrive, and there's some that'll thrive, and then suddenly one day they just closed up.
Yeah.
In the past, I think if you catch it almost soon enough, I think the antibiotics and stuff help. But I haven't nailed them down yet. I know when I frag them, I'm extra careful. I will like disinfect the bandsaw and everything, and run iodine in it while it's cutting. And I'm not just cutting like different, like one Goni gets cut, then I re-disinfect.
Oh wow!
And I cut a different Goni, because and I don't think all Gonis play nice with each other either. I think there's quite a few different ones, which
Yeah, I've seen Aussie ones. I've seen Aussie ones not get along with Indo ones, and then I've even seen some Indo ones not get along with each other. So
actually, it's funny. I had a customer today showing me a photo in his tank, and it's a Bernardopora literally right up on a glitter Goni, and I'm like, how is that? It's like,
those seem
couldn't understand
like quite a different species. So why would they be able to touch?
Yeah, and I've seen Bernardopora like before. I think when Bernardopora were first kind of slowly coming in, it would mess up the Gonis. Like we all thought it was like a micro Goni and like didn't know too much, but it was messing things up. So it was pretty surprising to see it next to a glitter Goni and thriving both.
Yeah, interesting. You just never know.
I don't have I don't have any like
specific tips.
Anything specific tips as far as Gonis go?
Yeah, I think it can sometimes be too much light. Might be kind of one of the things, but I've seen them under higher par and been surprised at times too.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we have some that are like sitting in 60 par, and then some that are sitting in almost 200 par, and I think they're just found all over the place, and it's like it's too hard to pinpoint what each type likes.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and then as far as feeding, I don't think we talked about this much, but do you do kind of just like a broadcast feed for most of your systems? Any specific spot feeds for any types of corals, or?
Yeah, so as far as, most of the systems don't get the food. Every now and then I'll feed them. However, the SPS system does get fed 2 to 3 times a week, and it's a mixture of Benepets, Coral Frenzy, which I think I just I think I found out I can't get that stuff anymore,
Hmm.
but I used to have a pretty big container. But Coral Frenzy, I use Captivates. I think is it not Remy? I'm mixing it up. Anyway, they have an SPS coral food. I'm blanking on the name though, but that's mixed
There's
in
a few of
there.
them. Yeah, there's a few different foods they have, but yeah, they're all very good, different sizes and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I mixed two of those in there, and that's pretty much it. I was gonna get one of the
integrate.
foods from Fauna Marine and try to incorporate that too in the mix as
Yeah, the
well.
Coral Sprint is what I use, and it's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's on its way.
it doesn't put your phosphates up. So if you're looking to get phosphates, the Min S is also really good. That's like the liquid, really stinky stuff. Smells horrible.
Oh, it's a liquid form?
Yeah,
Oh no.
yeah.
Okay.
It smells bad, but and
Okay.
then
I might try it.
and then there's always Reefroids if you want to, put your nitrates up along with
Yeah.
your food, right? Yeah,
Yeah. I think I don't want to increase I know it'll mess with the phosphates for
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
And
Or
then,
phosphates.
oh,
Did I
and
say
then
nitrates? I meant to say phosphates.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And then actually what's that brand? Easy SPS or Easy Reef, the Spanish, I think it's a Spanish company. They
I don't
have like
think I know
that kind of liquid phyto and like a gel suspension. I'll dose a little bit of that in the mixture of food too.
Okay. Yeah. So
Nothing
just
crazy,
a little
just
variety
like
of sizes.
a splash.
And then for fish, are
Yeah.
you doing like mysis or blended foods or variety of things?
I make my own.
Yeah.
I started making I got really expensive to start feeding all the mammals, all the fish in here. So I started making my own. Although I am a little curious if it's increasing our vanadium in our systems. I have
Interesting.
to ICP test another system just to make sure, but we do a mixture of octopus, squid, mussels, what is it, clam, trying to think what else, scallops, but sea scallops, because in my mind, bay
Yeah.
scallops might be exposed to more stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep it to
and
ocean.
then sockeye salmon.
Okay.
So I just go through a food processor, make my own, freeze
Yeah.
it, and
You make a
fish go
slurry.
crazy for it.
Nice. Yeah.
Little
That's always
slurry.
good.
Yeah.
Something you might want to look at for vanadium. I don't know what frag plugs you use, but I know that some of the ones on the market, I guess I don't need to say the name, but some of the widely used ones on the market actually have been tested and ICP'd for vanadium, and it was quite high. It leaches out from them.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I will have to ask you about that
Yeah,
later.
yeah, we'll put it in our after notes. Just because I don't want to say anything bad about any specific company.
No, I get it. Of
But
course.
it's something to watch out for. I mean, anything that uses like ceramics in general, I think that's one of the potential byproducts that can leach. So.
Is it the could it be like paints on it, or it's just that?
I would imagine that the ones that are dyed maybe have a higher probability of that. I'm not sure though.
Okay.
But I switched brands recently, and right now I'm using the Rock Hard Reef ones. And I think they're pretty good. The only problem is they're not textured, and frags bump off of them really easily. Even if they're glued on there, they just don't stay on very well.
Are you gluing it, or do you do the like glue putty?
I actually don't do the putty. I do the. I need to make a video on how I frag because I think it's the best way. But I use that weld stuff that you melt in hot water, and I make a sandwich between that and the. So I just keep a little hot. I keep the kettle nearby, or I microwave it. And I make these little blobs, and instead of the putty, and it's way easier to work with. I mean, it's hot. You got to be fast with it, but yeah, and it's nice. Oh. It's like the putty. It's nice because you can just pop the frag right off the plug, and
so that heat won't affect the frags.
No, it's not enough by the time you stick it on the frag plug to get it to glue. Like it's by the time you make contact with the frag, it's cooled down enough, and you also put super glue on either side of it, so you make a sandwich.
Oh,
basically.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I should make a video on it.
Okay, interesting.
It's good.
How come you don't like the other putty?
Oh, the putty's a pain in the ass to work with. It smells bad. It's like, I don't know. It gets all in your hands. You can use gloves, I know, but and then it kind of only has a certain amount of time.
If you wet your hands, it doesn't really stick on. It doesn't have that residue, I guess.
I also think after I used to do big batches of frags with the putty, I think I saw some problems in the tank afterwards that I can't completely blame on it, but I think it's possible. But it also could be that vanadium thing too. I don't know. It's not a dangerous element to have elevated, by the way. Like unless it's crazy it's not. High. Yeah.
Yeah, mine wasn't like it wasn't anything super high. So I wasn't not too concerned, but I'm just curious where it's coming from
Yeah.
because I'm not dosing it. So
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, and it's one of those
interesting.
elements. I mean, anytime you're using a program that's like a color program, like for example, like the Red Sea or the Fauna, like
Mhm.
it's just a general like blend of trace elements that they
Correct.
believe they get taken up in these portions, but there's always going to be
Yeah.
systems that are different. Some run macroalgae or refugiums, like
Right. Of
so
course.
something that's
You
not
know.
getting biologically like utilized or precipitated or whatever
Hmm.
skimmed out is going to eventually
Exactly.
become elevated. So yeah, that's why I don't really
Yeah.
like the all-in-one type trace solutions. But if you're just going
Yeah.
light like
I
you
know.
say, something is better than nothing. It's that whole rule, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Less is more in a way, you know?
Hmm.
So that's why I always tell our customers, it applies to anything with instructions like dose this much for this many gallons this
Hmm.
often. I always tell whatever they're telling you, at least cut it in half because that's a very general, you don't have no idea where those numbers like really came from. Like
Yeah, I
how
mean,
full was the
it seems like
system?
sometimes the
It's.
numbers are to sell more of the product to make you go through it faster, because I do find that
It's
they
possible,
yeah, some of them are a little ambitious for sure.
to
Yeah.
say the least. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. So recommended dosing, it's just very much dependent on system load.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
agreed.
Okay, I think maybe we can wind this down-ish and maybe go into the rapid fire
Sure.
questions, which are never rapid. I
Oh
mean, I'll be
yeah.
impressed if they're rapid, but do you want to do the rapid fires? I haven't done them in a while, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm game. Let's do
Okay.
it.
All right, let's do it. And remember, you can give me some weird kind of off kilter answer, whatever.
Okay,
Whatever comes to mind.
sure.
Okay.
Whatever it is, just blurt it out.
Favorite fish. Give me favorite fish and then favorite like utility fish.
Oh man, my favorite fish is a utility fish.
That's fine. They can be the
I would
same.
say black tang. Okay,
Okay.
black tang.
Cool.
Um, mainly because it's, you don't see too many fish that are solid,
Yeah.
black, and you're used to seeing all these colorful fish, and I don't know, it sticks out to me, and I love those fish.
That's cool. I just got given one
Second
recently,
is
actually.
flamingo. Did you?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So I have a long nosed black tang. He's very shy though.
That's
So
cool.
yeah. Anyways, this is
That's
about
really
you. This isn't
awesome.
about me. Okay. What do you say? What do you say was next?
Oh, the second one is flamingo. They're like
Okay.
gentle giants,
Yeah.
and they're amazing algae eaters and super personable.
Yeah. More like a
So
pet.
love those fish.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have them in every single system. Two in the or three in the acro system, one in the 150 display, two in the tub.
Nice.
They're
Okay.
great.
So they get along with each other pretty easily too, if you put multiples.
They didn't at first,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They figured it out. Yeah, they figured out how to
Yeah,
be
they figured it out.
roommates. Dude, we're roommates now, bro. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Favorite SPS? If you can name a species or a trade name or
Um, I gotta go with Oregon Tort. It's like the first acro I ever tried, and it was at a time where like, there wasn't really crazy colors, but it was blue, and there wasn't a lot
Mhm.
of blue, like a true blue in the hobby, and that's the one that took to me, and so I'll
Nice.
always stay Oregon Blue or
Yeah,
Oregon Tort.
that's a good answer. I think that's Keith's favorite SPS too.
Oh
I
yeah,
think that's what he says. Yeah.
nice.
Okay, favorite
Classic.
LPS.
I like torches, but favorite LPS. It's either got to be Acanthos or Bowers or torches. I don't know if I can pick a favorite.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah.
I can't. I don't think I can pick a favorite
But
exactly
basically
on those.
meaty corals, the meaty type ones with
Yeah, the
lots of
kind of
colors.
fleshier ones. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, that's a good. That's widely
And I
agreed
like,
on, I'm sure.
especially like Acanthos and well, especially Acanthos because there's no one piece that's the same.
Hmm. Yeah, that's totally true.
They're all different pretty
Yeah,
much.
yeah. Talk about crazy morph variation and strands of one little color here and there. It's pretty awesome for sure.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, softy.
Softy. I don't even know what kind of leather coral it is, but we have this huge, huge leather in our main display when you first walk into our office.
Hmm.
We call it the Yeti. It's like a cream white colored, extremely fuzzy leather, and it loves highlight and high flow, and it's
Crazy.
just thriving. It's huge. It's like at least the size of maybe 4 basketballs.
Holy.
It's
Okay. I got to
massive.
see a pic of
I'll have to
this
send
thing.
you.
Yeah. Is it on your
I'll send you
Instagram
a picture of it.
anywhere, or do you not have it?
I don't think I have it where it shows the size, but it is
Yeah.
somewhere in there for
Okay.
sure.
Cool. Yeah. I think I might see like a macro photo of it
It might
here,
be a little
but
further down.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think there's a macro
Yeah.
video of the
Cool. Cool.
fuzziness.
Cool. Okay. That's kind of neat.
Um,
That's unique. That's a one of a kind.
yeah, I
Cool.
love that thing.
And you
I
don't
don't
know
know
the
what it is though
species. Yeah. You're
exactly.
just like, it's just the Yeti. That's what it is. It's a
Yeah,
good name
we just
for
call
it.
it the Yeti.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. This is probably an obvious answer, but favorite light source or product, even from
I'm
your.
just gonna. I have to say Radeon.
Yeah.
I have to say Radeon. T5 is a close second. But just I think the ease of the Radeon for me. And my favorite is I have to say G4, but I do like the G5, G6. You just need like double to
Mm.
be able to get the same kind of par outputs.
You got better power, you
Um,
think, out of the G4s. I actually never used the G4s much, so
Oh,
that's
really?
interesting.
So
Okay.
the G5, the G6, the spread is incredible, and if you have enough of them where the lights kind of overlap, you can get some really good par.
Mhm.
But with Radeons, you can somewhat space them out, and you'll still get insane par. And
Yeah.
you don't have to run them as
Yeah,
high
with the
or
Gen probably Gen 3s and
the
4s are pretty
intensity.
similar. Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think the lenses were quite a bit different on the older generations.
Okay. So maybe
Yeah.
Gen 4 was one of the best. I've heard that from a few people. They actually thought,
Yeah,
that was
I'd say
kinda-
that.
Yeah.
I'd say that.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, so what would be your favorite product line if you were just using one product line to sort of maintain all of your parameters in water chemistry?
Honestly, as of late, I would say Captivate
Yeah.
and like Reef Blueprint, like their stuff. They just seem super high quality and for like very reasonable pricing.
Yeah, Chris definitely
and
puts
then-
in. He developed a lot of the Brightwell stuff, and then he made that company to make it even better.
Yeah.
Make it even better, really.
Yeah. So that makes it, and that whole story behind it makes it even like better for me. So yeah, I think you just get more bang for your buck, and it's a very good quality product.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Cool.
I'll give it to them. Yeah.
Captivate. Okay, and then salt. I'm gonna guess you're probably gonna say Tropic Marine is probably if you were picking one.
Yeah, it just gets expensive, and sometimes it's hard to source. When you have to make so much water. Yeah.
Okay. I don't think we talked about this, but favorite aquarium controller. Do you use controllers much?
I do now. I didn't always, but I'm gonna go with Hydros.
Okay. Yeah.
Very happy with them.
Yeah, they
Super
seem-
easy to use.
Yeah, they're
and
solid
a
build.
lot of stuff coming out.
Mhm.
Yeah, solid build, and I haven't had any issues with them. And I mainly use it for monitoring. I don't like to have like the automated testing and stuff like that. Although I will try the Maven when it comes out.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
curious
that
to
seems
see.
pretty cool. Yeah, and also I have had the answer
Yeah.
before. Myself, it can be the answer to favorite aquarium controller.
I am pretty old school. It took quite a bit of convincing for me to put those in place, but I am glad I did, because when I'm not here, I can actually check in on stuff and
Yeah.
make sure
Totally.
temperature
Yeah.
at
You
least,
are the
pH,
best aquarium
nothing's-
controller at the end of the day.
Yeah.
You're the
Try
aquarium
to be.
god of your systems. You're god.
Although I will say I'm a little forgetful at times, so it doesn't
Yeah.
always help.
Yeah. We didn't really talk about flow much, but maybe you can touch on that a bit. So what would be your sort of favorite flow pumps? And maybe it's situation dependent, but what do you kind of like to use?
Yeah. I think prior to me having the Reef Octopus Pulse 4s, I would have said MP40s, but I'm really digging the Reef Octopus 4s.
Yeah.
They are a little bit stronger. It sucks that there's a wire inside or in the tank,
Yeah.
but I love that you can, pivot and adjust it. And then a close second, which we use a lot of, are the Geyers. Either the Geyer or the Max Spec, those type of
Yeah.
pumps. They're great until they get a little bit clogged. but I've got the maintenance down. I can take them apart, clean them, put them back together in my sleep. So
yeah, that's good. yeah, and I think it's all about application, right? Like I think for frag tank,
Correct.
like gyres are often really good because they can give you that big like sheet of water movement, whereas the MP40s and the Reef Octopus are good. In a display that's deeper. Yeah, totally. One thing I'll say is I recently got a couple Hydros wave engines, and I put my gyres on those, and they drive those pumps way better. They're awesome.
Yeah.
Is that what you're running the
really
Reef Octo, the pulses on those?
The pulses are on there. Yeah. But it's something I set and forget, and those do turn down as far as like in the evening.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to set those on that. But
okay. So you got a little nighttime schedule where they can chill out a little bit.
Correct.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah. What would you say is your most despised pest that you've dealt with?
Oh man.
Or if you had it today in your system, what would make you the most upset?
Nudibranchs, the Monty eating nudibranchs would make me the most upset.
They are hard to kill.
Yeah,
it's true.
You literally have to get rid of all your Monties in the entire system and hope that you don't reintroduce.
Well, if you can put them all in a system full of the right kind of peppermint shrimp, they will decimate all of the babies and the eggs, or all the
and the eggs.
And the eggs.
What's the right type of peppermint?
It's the Quakenthale lismata. They're from Jakarta.
Love how you knew that, right?
I know. Well, it's because I talk about it quite a bit.
Is that the one with the kind of striped? I guess it's a little coloration down the tail.
Yeah, it's not
side.
Like a camel shrimp, because camel shrimp will actually start eating the coral. They're they call them Quakenthale cleaner on some of the wholesale sheets for them. So if you ever see them, that's what they call them. They're not called peppermint shrimp. They're called Quakenthale cleaner.
Are those the same shrimp that they supposedly in Europe they use for flatworms? Is that the same?
I'm not
type,
sure. I know that they eat the new acropora eating flatworms. They eat those. They eat those new acropora eating flatworms. I don't know about
the ones
flatworms
that have been coming in.
Yeah, but those little purple ones that lay eggs everywhere, they eat those too.
I haven't experienced those.
Yeah, guys. Those are the worst. Those are, I would say, if I'm going to answer my most hated pest, that was the one that when I came across those, I was like, this is the devil. This came from the depths of hell.
Man. No. Okay, so maybe if I ever, well, hopefully not, if I were to experience, I might change my answer. But
yeah,
since I haven't, I'll stick to the nudies for now.
Yeah, totally. Okay. Yeah, and I think you're right. Like the nudies are bad also because they're not always just on the coral. Like they actually walk around the tank a little. So even if you took everything out and dipped it like heavy.
Correct.
Yeah.
You have to starve them. Like you cannot have a single piece of Goniopora in there. Although they never seem to touch Setosa.
Yeah.
But maybe if they got hungry enough, I guess they
probably would. Yeah, they also go after Anacropora. I guess it's just slightly palatable enough for them. Yeah, I've heard that from.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna skip that one. Maybe I'll ask you this. So yeah, if you were to kind of prioritize out of these three things, what you would put the most attention to, if you say if two of them were done well and then one of them was just absolutely awesome, lighting, flow, or water chemistry, like what would you prioritize?
Oh man, should I put them in
put them in order of importance to you and what you focus your
Okay, to me it would be parameters, flow, light.
Yeah Okay. I think that makes sense. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, because I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, like you were saying, you've seen some awesome corals in systems that had kind of lower par, and you were kind of like, oh, this is actually working really well for you. Yeah. Totally.
But I think flow is super important because there's been times when those gyres and I'm a little late to get them cleaned up and flowing again, or properly flowing. You'll notice on some of the bigger colonies that are there, they start to kind of get a little bit of I don't know, they don't seem as happy.
Yeah.
And then you'll see literally detritus build up inside, and that's never good,
you got to be on top of that for sure. Yeah, no, I think it was Mike Paletta had mentioned this. He's like, I mean, yeah, you can put those other things in different order, but flow, if your tank has no flow for a day, everything dies. So in that respect, flow is the most important, but I'm saying if all of those things were average to good, what would you make awesome? And I agree, probably water chemistry, right?
Yeah, I would want to stay on top of that. Yeah.
All right, I got a couple more questions. So the big question is, if you were to do a polo reef of your own, would you do something like that, or would you do something differently? What would be your kind of fantasy tank if you had the means, the financial means to do it?
Okay. Well, I've always dreamt about having almost like a shallow enough thing that you like huge that you can light but walk through, almost like a pond type thing,
like a wading
pool. You
can
walk through it. Yeah, pretty much, and you can just kind of put on a snorkel and do it that way. But also at the same time having like a massive display like that. If you have the same health that he has, like that would be so incredible.
Yeah.
But I've always wanted like some kind of like pool thing you can kind of swim in and like really get down in there and see
I
what's
think
what.
I actually literally have had that dream, like
yeah,
where I had a giant reef tank
thing.
that you could actually just, it maybe had a little bank.
I wonder if we've all had that dream at the same time.
Yeah. Maybe we all have. We're just coming out of the closet on our reef dreams. Yeah. Jeez. Yeah, that's funny. Okay, cool. Final question. New one. Favorite reef podcast? You can it's not a fixed question.
Do you even have to ask? No, you seriously. It's you. It's I haven't listened to everything, but you really got me into it, and it got me thinking on a lot of things. And listening to all the guys that you have on, it makes me want to try new and different things and try to better myself,
That's cool, man.
As a hobbyist, as a business owner. So I'm for sure you.
Thanks, man. Okay, well, I wasn't pushing for that. I was kind of just being cheeky, but
no, I swear. I really don't listen to many others, to be honest. So
yeah, no, there's a lot of stuff out there for sure, but that's cool, man. Well, this has been really fun. Definitely cool.
Likewise.
Just deep diving into what you do in your systems and getting to know each other a little. It's cool, man.
Awesome.
Thanks for listening to this episode with Elliot Azhdam from Golden State Corals. If you are in the US and you're looking for some of his sexy corals, you can go to goldenstatecorals.com and take advantage of that 50% off sale they have going on right now. Just another shout out to our sponsor, Fauna Marine. They brought tons of amazing products to the market this year. Also, they now have a spectral analysis you can add as an add-on to your ICP analysis. If you have any suggestions for future guests, want to ask me a question, or just reach out in general, you can email me at beyondthereefpod@gmail.com. And if you're looking for high-quality aquacultured corals in Canada, please go to my website at fraggarage.ca. Hope to hear from you soon.